listening to The Breakfast Show on Faith FM. This is our third hour of our program. We're going to have our Encounter with God segment, where we are going deep into the book of Colossians, so you can understand it. Look, the purpose of these Bible studies is that you can go back then, you listen to this, then you go back to your Bible and say, oh, yeah, I remember Skafy and Daniel and Sandy, they were talking about that, and now I understand what it means. Particularly the epistles of Paul that can be quite dense. But we're going to get more on that later today, because before I go there, we have a quiz question. But even before the quiz question, I just want to say that we convinced Sophia to actually stay back so she can participate on the Bible studies with us. So she's going to be
that's awesome,
being a part here. So I can
we need some help. That's
right, Sophia. We need some fresh brains here to help, Dan and I.
She's got a Bible open already.
Very
Awesome. Good,
Sophia. Okay, so we also have a couple of text messages that came through that I would like to read. So let's start with the quiz question first. Producer Sandy, give us the quiz question, and after that we will... Well, let's see first if we can get our heads around it then.
Okay. I think this one's an easy one.
Okay, easy.
I need an easy one.
Okay. The sun went backwards during the reign of which king?
I know this one.
The sun went backwards during the reign of which king? Listeners, send us your answers to 0491064669. We have correct answers from Daniel and Skafy.
Oh, well done, Dan.
Nice one, guys.
Is Sophie playing as well?
Well, no, because she can see the
She has
the
access.
and the answer.
And she can see our answers as we flash them up.
Yeah. So, we want to hear from our listeners. The sun went backwards during the reign of which king? 0491064669.
This is a wild story.
It is a wild story.
Amazing story.
Yeah.
It is very cool.
There are some claims on the internet that, there's some people that have found scientific proof that this happened.
I actually wanted to see, I want to talk to you about that. But when we get the answer to that quiz question, I want to explore that so just a little bit deeper with you then, because this is a fascinating story. From the Bible. Let's get into some of the messages that came through here.
Yes.
I have a couple of interesting ones. Let's see here. There's a message here from Brett. And Brett sent this message. This is in regards to your microfinance conversation. Then Dan's news section today was about the David Bissau and the blessings of microfinance, and we're talking about it. And Brett said this: I had wrestled with the question of helping people despite them not choosing Christ and them still journeying in the wrong direction. Kind of like, do I help them or not? But he says, but I came to the conclusion that we can really never fully know if a person is going to accept Jesus or not, or even if they already have Jesus, if they are going to abandon that. And therefore, it's best to be like Christ and help regardless of the result. Not because of what they will potentially become, but because of who God is.
Absolutely. And it's kind of like us as parents, isn't it? Like, we help our kids regardless.
Yeah.
They have freedom to live and do what they please. And, we try to help guide them and support them.
Yeah.
But
kind of
we'll
like
help them anyway.
I like when I figured that out as well, I really realized, what? The Bible says that God pours the rain both on the righteous and the unrighteous, the sun on the grateful and the ungrateful. So if God loves people with no strings attached, why shouldn't we as his followers? So I want everybody to come to the knowledge of salvation of Jesus. But at the same time, it's not my role to force anyone to do that or I can do. I would love everyone. And then for those who are interested in to be, in spiritual things, then I'll be more than happy to share. But if they are not, guess what? We're helping them anyhow.
Can I just share a little story? And this is back on the microfinance thing, and it'll only take a minute. So ADRA is the Adventist Church's Development and Relief Agency. That's what it stands for, Adventist Development and Relief Agency. And ADRA does a fair few microfinance projects in the world, right in our neighbourhood here in Solomons, we have a project that's microfinance based, and there's a story from it in our in the annual report from ADRA that's online that you can look up, and it describes how Barnabas, a guy in the Solomons, he was actually brought up in the church, and he drifted, and he got connected with the microfinance program to help in his agricultural productivity at his farm there in the Solomons, and he got the economic boost. And as he was participating in this project, he made a spiritual reconnection as well, and he even had a prayer for him given by the ADRA director in the office. And Barnabas decided it was time to come back to Jesus. And
amazing.
Yeah, after 55 years, he started attending church again just last year.
Amazing.
And this is thanks to a microfinance project that ADRA is running in the Solomons. So, we can help people's physical needs as well as their spiritual needs. We can do just one or just the other. There's no strings attached in the Christian gospel at all. Like, it's freely given to us. It's up to us whether we take it or not.
Very good. Very good. All right. Hey, Sophia, have you struggled with that as well? Like, I mean, you have been going, from door to door, and, sharing the gospel with people. Have you ever struggled with that idea? It's like, you know what? Is it worth it? Like, what if I'm going there to talk up to them about Jesus, but they don't really want to know? Have you ever struggled with these thoughts?
Yeah, I think door knocking is one of those things that's kind of difficult because you don't have that high of a success rate. Because you can be walking for hours and hours and days and not find many people who are actually interested. But those few that you do find that interested, makes it so much more worth it because you've actually put the effort in and God has blessed you with the opportunity to actually reach someone.
Yeah.
And that may have just been open for that time, or maybe been praying for that very moment, and you can be a part of God's plan in reaching them.
You know what? This often happens because when you were doing that kind of ministry, have you done it then, door knocking?
Yeah.
There's so many.
Not for as long as you have, Sophie, but I have.
You have done some of that.
I have done it.
Look, I have had so many stories of some of my friends that did it as well. And they often report these stories of, people saying to God, almost giving God a deadline. God, if you are real, send someone in my door to teach me about you. Otherwise, I'm out of this world. I'm done with it.
Yeah.
And then 10 minutes later, knock. Yeah. So it's amazing how God orchestrates some incredible divine appointments with that.
Yeah.
All right. That is really good. Let's move on to our Bible study now. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for your message, Brett.
Yeah.
Let me see here if do we have any other messages that came through? Oh, Sky said, hey, you have been part of my little support system. So it means a lot to be included and thought of. Sky, thank you so much. It's we often think about you, and we really enjoy that you're part of this family here of the breakfast show. Simon said, hey, I'm so glad you are on air, sharing God's truth. Very helpful. We need prayer in Adelaide at the moment. Lots of ungodly activity seems to be focusing in parts of the city, in the city of churches. That's called this.
Yeah, Adelaide
another
is
name
the
from the
city of
Adelaide
churches,
city of churches. And
they're beautiful churches.
yeah,
there.
it's hard to hear that, Simon. But you know what? We're praying here that God will really help law and order to be restored. Help with the police officers, but not only the police officers, help with the community leaders as well. Because a lot of times the police officers, I think they're kind of the last line of defense. But I think that there's a lot that we can do to even support their work there. But also when you look at young men or young people being rascals and doing some dangerous activities and so on, often when you get to know them, they don't have a fatherly figure present. They don't have a purpose. They don't have something. So they have all this energy. They don't know how to direct it to useful purposes and causes. So they ended up, being involved in dangerous behavior and sometimes even in criminal behavior. But in communities where there is an active presence, and often churches do this really well, of that, really being a father to the fatherless, so to speak.
Yeah, right.
Because a lot of kids today, they are orphans from living parents, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I think this is a big calling for the church to actually be like Job, a father for the fatherless.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks, Simon. So definitely praying for that one. Let's move on to our Bible study here now. We're going to be looking at Genesis chapter... Oh, sorry, not Genesis, but Colossians. Colossians chapter 1. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, we're talking about Jesus, the beginning. The beginning of all things, the firstborn of all creation, the firstborn of the dead, and all these kinds of things. And today we're going to be looking at verse 19 onward. So I would like to ask Sophia to read for us from verse 19 all the way to verse 23.
Cool. For it pleased the Father that in him all the fullness should dwell, and by him to reconcile all things to himself, by him, whether things on earth or things in heaven, having made peace through the blood of his cross. And you, who were once alienated and enemies in your mind by wicked works, yet now he has reconciled, in the body of his flesh through death, to present you holy and blameless and above reproach in his sight. If indeed you continue in the faith, grounded and steadfast, and are not moved away from the hope of the gospel which you heard, which was preached to every creature under heaven, of which I, Paul, became a minister.
Okay, let's just pause here. If you were going to summarize what you read there, it can be either for you, Sophia, or for you, Dan. How would you summarize what you just read, that little passage, in one word? What do you think is the most important word here? It can be in the text, can be out of the text.
I would pick, from the text, I would pick reconciliation, reconciled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What would you pick, Sophia?
I was thinking, continue in the faith.
Okay, yeah. I think they're both really good, but I would go with Dan, and I'll go with reconcile as well. Actually, that word reconcile, I'm seeing here, it appears, even though in our English Bible is appearing only 2 times, it's actually 3 times here in Greek.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So through him, okay, well, just let me backtrack for 1 second here. We're going to be talking about that idea of reconciliation. Now, but before we do that, I just want to remind everyone that when I'm reading the letters of the Apostle Paul, and there's a lot of words here, and a lot of big, important keywords here. So the way that I found most helpful to go through these letters is to see that Paul is making a conclusion, but he's kind of almost like reminding the church of a whole bunch of facts, which I like to call truth statements. And because of all these truth statements are true, therefore, there's a response to it. So when we're reading Paul, I like to really think about, okay, what are these true statements that Paul is kind of taking for granted that his church, they already knew. But in our day and age, we don't know. We don't have we haven't had Paul as our instructor in the past. So we might not know. So we have to kind of look into each one of them and just remind ourselves, okay, what is he talking about here? I'll give you some examples, okay? The first thing is, through Jesus, verse 20, God chose to reconcile all things to himself. This is a truth statement. God has reconciled all things to himself. Well, let's talk about it a little bit. What are the things that God has reconciled in Jesus? What do you think they are? Because it's just like all things. Okay, what kind of things are part of these all things? What has Jesus reconciled?
The separation between humanity, sinful humanity, and himself.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate reconciliation.
Yeah.
But it's also reconciliation of ideas as well, is it? I'm not sure if I'm stretching this too far, but it's a reconciliation of justice and mercy.
Yeah, all right. So reconciliation of justice and mercy, and reconciliation of people with God. What about you, Sophia? What else did Jesus reconcile? Do you agree with Dan? Do you think, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I could be stretching it beyond the linguistic
No, I don't think you
range
are,
of that
actually.
word,
I don't think you are
No?
at
Okay.
all.
Yep.
What about you, Sophia? What else is Jesus reconciling? What is to reconcile anyway? What do you understand about this word? What is to reconcile something?
Reconcile. It's to make peace with it. So
Yeah.
that you've forgiven them, and then you're reconciling. So rebuilding that
Yeah.
relationship. I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Rebuilding, like something was broken, now he's fixing.
Yeah.
So what else is reconciling here? What can you think of?
Well, the main one that sticks out to me is obviously us, who we were once alienated and enemies, and he's reconciling it together back with us.
Yeah.
Because we've kind of stepped away from God, or have been the ones that have put in that barrier and that separation, and he's the one that's reaching across that back to us to reconcile back to us. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think that this is the beauty of that particular passage. Paul says he's reconciling all things. Jesus didn't just reconcile one thing. He's really fixing the entire universe.
Everything that's broken.
Everything that is broken.
Yeah.
I can think of a few other examples as well. He's reconciling, for example, the culture, the atmosphere that existed in heaven.
Yeah, right.
Because remember, 1/3 of the angels chose to go with Lucifer. in his rebellion. But even the angels that stayed back, I think that there were some doubts in their minds. Look, we're siding with God on this one, but we're interested to know who was right here. Was Satan right, or was Lucifer right, or was Jesus right? Through the blood of Jesus, it was very clear. So no. When Lucifer was saying that God is just manipulating us, or he's using us for his own purposes, that he doesn't like us, when Jesus died and he sacrificed for humanity, the angel says, no, look, we know that God really loves his creation. So whatever doubts that they could have had, dispelled. Other worlds, the Bible mentions about the other worlds, the cosmos, the cosmoi, the worlds, the universes, the other worlds looking at us intently. They are interested in how the story of salvation is playing out. That has been reconciled as well, because they may have had, Satan was probably knocking on their doors as well, saying, hey, would you like to join me in my rebellion against God?
And they've at least got questions.
That's right. They had questions. They said, look, no, we're not going to disobey God, except in this tiny little planet here called Earth, where, our first parents said, I think you have a good point. Give me a bite of this fruit.
Yeah.
And Jesus is reconciling that. Another point that Jesus is reconciling, not quite fully, but also reconciling us with the creation, with nature.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
In what ways?
He does mention every creature, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So he alludes to that.
That's right. It's reconciled because, look, humanity, aside from Jesus, what we tend to do, just look outside the window. We tend to destroy the planet, destroy life. And God is even trying to reconcile that, as to regain our status as stewards of this planet. Meaning that we have to look after it.
And to be fair, it sometimes feels like creation's out to get us too.
Yeah. 100%. So Paul is saying, hey, through Jesus, through his blood, the whole world was reconciled. Even more abstract concepts like justice and mercy was reconciled. Mercy for us is the fallen race, but justice that God's saying, look, his word, his law being upheld.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
Let's get into the quiz answer first, and then we'll jump back into our study here of how God reconciled things, and most importantly, why was he reconciling things, particularly when it has to do with us here.
Yeah, right.
Because we are also part of that reconciliation package. Producer Sandy, what was the answer to the question?
So an answer, and then the very last question for the morning. The last question, the sun went backwards during the reign of which king? And that was King Hezekiah. King Hezekiah.
Yes, King
asked
Hezekiah.
for a sign from God that the sun go back.
Do you think
Actually, he didn't ask the sign from God. God offered him a sign.
Yes, you are correct. God offered him a sign, and the sign that he asked for was for the sun to go back. And then people came from Babylon to find out what had gone on. And
this story is so interesting in so many levels, because basically this king was dying and he was crying in his bed to God, saying, God, please have mercy on me. And God said, okay, Hezekiah, you know what? You touched my heart. I'm going to extend your life in another 15 years.
That's right.
And by the way, I can give you a sign. If you don't believe me, if you think that you're hallucinating, you're not. You can ask me, would you like for me to advance the clock forward in 10 degrees or 15 degrees, or you want it to go backwards? And King Hezekiah was probably thinking, man, go forward. People could probably see people could think, oh, wow, time has flown. So, but time going back in the past, this is way more of a miracle.
Yeah, unheard of.
Yes. I think, to be honest, the right answer for him would have been, God, you don't need to give me any sign. Your word is enough.
Yeah, right.
This is a theme in the Bible. Jesus really downplays the miracles. He gives them, but he says, look, if you're depending your faith on miracles, your faith is very weak. It shouldn't. It should just depend on my word. Because what happened is that, as you mentioned, the Babylonians found out. They said, oh, wait a minute. How come the sun is going backwards? They were investigating the process. Their investigation led them to King Hezekiah. They learned about the miracle. They went there to investigate, to learn more. And instead of King Hezekiah giving them a run about, hey, this is what the God of Israel is like, and this is the gospel, this is how he saves us. He decided to share all of his cool toys.
Yeah.
And the Babylonians took note, and they says, hey, there's this tiny little kingdom in the middle of nowhere called Israel.
Treasures in
and
the temple.
These guys are rich.
Yes.
Just saving for future times when we need some gold. This is some easy grabs here.
Yeah, right.
So we can read about that in 2 Kings chapter 20. And I'm going to give
Yeah.
you the very last quiz question for this morning.
Okay.
All right. Who claimed that the words of Ecclesiastes were his? Who claimed that the words of Ecclesiastes were his? For our listeners, 0491064669, text us your answers. Who claimed that the words of Ecclesiastes were his? Oh, we got two different answers. You're both correct, but I think Daniel is more correct.
Okay.
So for Shell's answer, Daniel's correct, but yes, that's the one that we're after, Skafy. However,
This
yes.
is an abstract question. If I put
It's
my
an
name,
interesting one.
would I be correct?
No.
You.
Yeah.
No.
Hey, listen to the question again. It would actually be correct.
Say
Oh,
the
who
question.
claimed that the words of Ecclesiastes? In
Yeah,
Ecclesiastes,
If you claim that, then
1
yes.
verse 1, you will find who claimed to have written the book
right.
of
Okay.
Ecclesiastes.
Very good.
All right.
Thank you so much, Sandy. Let's get back here. So now that we're talking about this whole reconciliation, let's read that passage again. Then I'd like to ask you this time. So because now I think it is going to like unpack a bit more for us. So read again from verse 20 all the way to verse 22 now.
So Colossians 1 verses 20 to 22. And by him to reconcile all things to himself, by him, whether things on earth or things in heaven.
By the way, stop there. Weren't we just talking about it? How
Yes.
heaven also was reconciled. Things in heaven
Yes.
and on earth.
And all of creation. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
Having made peace through the blood of his cross. And you, who once were alienated and enemies in your mind by wicked works, yet now he has reconciled in the body of his flesh through death to present you holy and blameless and above reproach in his sight.
Okay, just pause here. So he's saying, hey, everything was reconciled, including you, people. Including me and you then. Like, what Jesus done affects us. Affects actually every person on earth. You have been reconciled to God through Jesus' blood. But then there is a purpose for that. Is he just reconciled and say, okay, guys, you're reconciled, move on, go back to work, nothing to see here. Is that what's happening there, Sophia? Or can you see here in this passage, what is the whole purpose that God is reconciling people with him?
Well,
What do you think?
I'm looking at like verse 22. He's reconciling us to present us holy, so we can kind of get back to. Wait, was that the question?
Yeah, that's exactly the question.
Yeah.
That's exactly the answer.
Yeah.
All of this God has done so that he could present us holy and blameless and beyond reproach. Let's kind of understand that a little bit, because this is a word that we don't really use very often in our day-to-day vernacular.
Reproach.
Holy,
okay.
and blameless. Kind of, because like, look, a person could accuse. I'm going to throw this curveball at you then for a second. Person can say, okay, so God did all of this just so that we can be holy and blameless before him. So he had like second intentions. So he just so that we could serve him. Is that the point? Okay, you were useless servants. Now I died for you. Okay, now you serve me. Couldn't Satan point at that as being selfish? What do you say?
He could, and I think he does do that in the minds of people who distort the gospel and are confused by it. So yes, I think that happens. But
how do you interpret that? How do you see the love of God here? It's like, okay, God, you did all this so that I could come before you, like beyond reproach, so that I could be like and I'm playing the enemy's advocate here.
Right.
I'm going to give you a solution for that problem, but I have to present the problem first. So God, Jesus did all that just because he wanted, it's kind of like saying like the Father. Sophia, like, get this picture here. Kind of like the father that is working out all day, sacrificing himself, he's toiling, he's working his behind off, so that he can come and say, look, I'm doing all of this. I'm working hard. The only thing that I'm expecting is that by the time that I come home, my kids will be smelling nice, showered, and being well presented so that you can be blameless before me. And you cannot do this. It's kind of like saying, okay, God, you did all this just because you wanting to force us into some kind of response. What would you say, Sophia, if one of your friends would interpret that passage in this way that I am sharing with you?
I think if you look at it in that way, then it's kind of looking a little bit at the maybe wrong perspective, because
Okay.
it's not about why like we should be like demanded demanded to do this, because if the dad comes home and the kids are all like washed and showered and clean and tidy and everything, then they would be feeling nice and prepared and ready for themselves. It's not just about for the dad, it's for them, that they can feel kind of not complete, but like put together and like feeling their best, I guess.
You know what? I think that you're spot on. I
Yeah,
think that,
exactly. I like it.
That's the answer. That's the answer that was in my mind as well.
Yeah. And I like the analogy that you gave. Like it's difficult to make up perfect analogies for our relationship with God, but the preparing for the Father to come, to come home, like that kind of makes sense. That is kind of what it's an analogy that works here.
Yeah.
So I think this is a case where God wants us to see the beauty of his character, not because he wants to be, oh, look at me, like I'm good, I'm better than the other alternative.
I want you to be perfect now, and I want you to be all good. And
it's more that God knows what is. He's created us to be creatures of love and selflessness, and he knows that's better for us. So he wants that for us, not because it makes him any better, or he needs to have his ego stroked or whatever. He knows that that's best for us.
Yeah.
So he wants us to participate in, to align with his character of love and selflessness, out of selflessness, not selfishness.
Absolutely.
And because we are selfish, the devil tempts us to read this and go, wow, God just wants to, to coerce us into his way of doing things because it makes him look good.
Yeah.
No,
absolutely.
actually, that's the devil.
Absolutely. Look, let's pause here for a second here. I was once talking to a friend of mine, Sophia, and she had a hard time reading these kinds of passages in the Bible. They talk about being blameless and so on, because she was like, oh, there's so much pressure. I already have so much pressures in my life. She's a mom. I have so much pressure in my life. I'm a mom, and then I have all these expectations from society. Now I have the expectations from God that I have to be holy and blameless and beyond reproach. But I look at myself and I'm a broken person. So, I feel guilty. I feel bad. I feel pressured. And I say to her, look, let's backtrack that a little bit. And I acknowledge how you're feeling, but this is actually supposed to give you the absolute opposite reaction. I'll explain to you why. If I would translate this in very, very basic words, I would say, now God has reconciled you in his fleshy blood through that, so that you could actually be happy.
Yeah, right.
Now, the Bible doesn't use that word happy, because and for a good reason. Because if we think about happy, we kind of may be tempted to think about how the world thinks about happiness. Kind of like, yeah, just do what you're happy, my love. Just do what you're happy, son. Just do what you're happy, friend. This is what the motto. Oh, do whatever makes you happy. Completely separated from God or from his words or from his law.
We see that through a selfish lens.
I see it through a selfish lens.
Yeah.
But so this is why I'm glad that the Bible doesn't use, but ultimately this is true happiness that God is offering us. Because look at this. In order to present yourself before him, there's three things: holy, blameless, and beyond reproach. What is holy? The Bible says God is holy, and he says, be holy because I am holy. So when God is saying, I want you to be holy, he said, look, I have created you to be in my image, and when I died, it's because I actually want to restore that image of God that is in you that has been broken away. So this is the first thing. Holiness, I would say, also equals to happiness in one way, because for example, when is a pencil happiest? When it's drawing something amazing in the hands of an artist, or when it's being chewed by a dog? I mean, things are when we use things to fulfill the purpose they have been created to. Yeah. That's when they find their greatest fulfillment. And we too, when we become more like God in character, in love, and when we have been designed to love and to be loved, and when we can experience that in God, this is called holiness. And God says, look, you'll be fulfilled. God did that so that you can actually feel and experience true happiness, true fulfillment. Then the next one, blameless and beyond reproach. Don't you want to be blameless? And look, we can partially experience that in this earth, be blameless and beyond reproach. But this is also a promise that God said, hey, we're going to be coming to a time, living in God's kingdom, where we won't do anything that would hurt anyone else. Isn't that a good thing? If someone says, hey, you know what? God has a plan for you. At one point in your life, you're going to be so attuned with me that nothing that you ever do would actually be causing any hurt to anyone, any grief to anyone. On the contrary, everything that you do would only cause greater happiness to people. Now you multiply that by billions.
And it comes back to yourself.
And it comes back to yourself because other people
are doing the
every
same,
time that they're relating to any other person, they are only going to do you good, never evil. Isn't that an amazing thing? This is what God is reconciling for. He's reconciling, saying, look, through Jesus' blood, we're going to be the absolute happiest because you're going to be restored to the image of God, and you will learn the ways of God in such a way that not only you, but everybody around you would only build up on everybody's life, nothing and no less. So now on this earth, it's not perfectly there yet. Because we have ignorance, we sometimes don't know, don't have the experience. Sin exists. Sometimes even if we are building other people up, they are tearing us down and so on. So it is a partial fulfillment of that.
And even the good that we do is still tainted through our selfish.
Yes.
We have a selfish worldview. So it's difficult for us to see this and to see only beauty and promise and hope and goodness. I can relate to somebody who feels like, oh man, the burden of expectation on me, the pressure. Oh.
Yeah. But I looked at her and I said, look, instead of seeing this as a thing that God wants you to perform and pressure, do this. So no. Look at a promise. God is saying, you will be this through my power, not through your power. It's surely there's always like an element of effort from our human part, but God is saying, look, I'm actually carrying that for you. Don't you want to do this? So instead of looking at that and seeing, oh, I'm not measuring up, we actually should look at that and with gratitude and say, God, if you said that I'm going to be like that, it's going to happen to me. You know what? I'm thanking you, and I want to see that. I want to be a part of it. Here I am. Say to me, I'm broken. I cannot do this by my own self. There's no way I can do this. But if you're saying that you can make me blameless and holy and beyond reproach, I believe in you. Let's I want to, please work that in me. So when you see this as a promise that the good work that God is going to do in us and through us, I think it's way better news than saying, okay, by the way, this is the expectations that you have.
Yeah, right.
Look at this as a promise.
Yeah, I think that's like I have a really cool story actually relating to that. I think if you look at it in that way, it's not God kind of giving you expectations. It's Him telling you who you can be, and He's like believing you and being like, you can be like this, and I know you can. With me, you can't do it by yourself, but with me, you can reach that. And so, like, I know, just quick analogy, but I'm on my P, so I've been like learning to drive and everything. So I haven't driven that much with trailers, but I had to take our boat down to the boat ramp like a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, oh, this is like second time I've done this. I don't know if I can do this. And Dad's like, yeah, you got this, and then just let me go. And I was like, what? I don't think I'm ready for this at all. And then he's like, no, you'll be fine. You got this. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I went and did it, and I was fine. And I came back, and he was like, yeah, I knew you could do it. And it wasn't any like kind of big like, see, you got this. Yeah, I know you can do it. It was just like that simple. Yeah, you got this. I know you can do it. And then when I told him that I did do it, he's like, yep, that's fine. I'm not surprised because I knew you could do it.
Wow.
That's
there
cool.
you go.
You got a good dad.
He spoke faith into you.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And then let's just read verse 23 here. We'll finish up with that. And Sophia, can you read for us verse 23?
Yeah, sure. If indeed you continue in the faith, grounded and steadfast, and are not moved away from the hope of the gospel which you heard, which was preached to every creature under heaven, of which I, Paul, became a minister.
Yeah. All right. What is the most important word in this Bible verse here, according to you, Sophia?
Continue in the faith, I reckon.
Continue in the faith. Just one word.
Grounded. I reckon continue.
Okay. What about you, Dan?
Yeah, it's maybe hope. But I like the word continue. I think it's good.
Continue. I'll say if. Because there's a condition here.
Yeah.
We're talking about this amazing benefit that God is like promising us. This amazing picture of being transformed into His image, being absolutely, ultimately, and supremely happy and blessed and useful to the absolute degree. But there's a condition if. And I guess that continue was the next, it's a pretty solid word here. If you continue in the faith, firmly established and steadfast. There's this idea that, a lot of Christians believe in, once saved, always saved. Well, this Bible verse demolished that idea from the ground because it's saying the condition is that if you continue in the faith, meaning that it is possible not to continue in the faith, to discontinue in the faith. And if you're discontinuing in the faith, all of that plan that God has for you will just crumble down.
Yeah.
So to continue in the faith is absolutely important. So Paul is saying all of these things. What he wanted to tell us, look, God has an amazing plan. He's reconciled all things. But for you to experience that, you have to continue in that faith. You cannot abandon him, you cannot let it go, you cannot grow weary of following him.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
And we have been talking about Paul reconciling things on heaven and on earth. And if you would like to receive a PDF guide of our Bible study here on Colossians and Philippians, let me know here. Text me hashtag 20 million to 0491 064 669. Why 20 million then? Do you know?
That's how many people are studying the Sabbath school lesson in churches every week right around the world.
That's right. We call it the 20 million movement guide. So there's 20 million people around the world studying this pamphlet, which is pretty cool to think about.
That is cool.
Yes. And it's amazing that even though there's 20 million people, I would say that there's 20 million slightly different insights and applications. Not that each person is arriving at a very different conclusion, but this is the beauty about the Bible. Like, you know how Sophia, for example, she's giving an analogy of what does it look like for God to speak faith into us. You know, her father said, yeah, you can do this. And that encouraged her to go and do it. You know, she just needed that permission almost, you know, that just encouragement. And it's amazing that when we study the Bible, we all bring our own life experiences to it. And then it makes the knowledge more rich. All right, Brother Sandy, let's get the answer to the quiz question now, please.
Final question for the morning was, who claimed that the words of Ecclesiastes were his? Now, we had Dan say Solomon, and we did have Skafy say the preacher, which Skafy, according to Ecclesiastes 1 verse 1, you are actually correct. So she wrote there Solomon as the answer, which I read and said, oh, yeah, Daniel's got it. Skafy, no. But, yeah, in Ecclesiastes, different translations that I had a look at was either preacher or teacher. So,
yes, and the Hebrew word is the kohelet, the preacher, the teacher. It's the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem.
That's right. So who we know as Solomon, but he identified himself as the preacher or
as
the
teacher.
Preacher. So taking both of those correct answers this morning from our listeners.
Sounds great. And which is very interesting. One thing that people don't often realize about Ecclesiastes is that there are two voices in the book of Ecclesiastes. And they kind of work as as two bookends. So you have here, who's introducing the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem? You can say, it's Solomon himself because he's writing the book. Yes, but there's two different voices. There's this one voice of the narrator. And it's kind of like saying here, it's kind of like me saying here, hey, this is now the words of Daniel. And then in the same book. So you have the narrator of the story, and then you have the words of the preacher. And this is why very interesting, because the words of the preacher or the teacher, they are often a little bit gloomy.
Right. Yeah.
And what the teacher is a very wise person who's looking at the world, but he's also trying to interpret the world when God is not in the first place. So he acknowledges the existence of God, but he's trying to make sense of life without a relationship with God. I would say this is the word.
Yeah.
So the book of Ecclesiastes,
nihilistic, and
what is the best conclusions you can make about the world apart from a relationship with God,
right,
but acknowledging the existence of God. So that so much so that by the time that you come to the end of the book of Ecclesiastes here, I'm just scrolling through here. In chapter 10, 11, and 12. Chapter 12 is the end of Ecclesiastes. It says, look, the conclusion, when all has been heard is, so this is now not the preacher anymore, but the person who was introducing the preacher.
The narrator.
The narrator. Said, look, the conclusion, after you hear all of these things, this is the conclusion. Fear God, keep his commandments, because this applies to every person. For God will bring every act to judgment, everything which is hidden, whether it's good or evil. So, but look, after all of these wisdoms, you know what? This is the takeaway lesson here.
Yeah.
Fear God and keep his commandments.
And by fear God, we mean love God.
Love God.
Have that relationship.
That's right.
Have that respect for God.
Honor God, and part of honoring God is actually having a relationship.
Yeah.
You know, if I am at odds with you, then if I don't want to honor you, you know what I do? I just ignore you.
Yeah.
I see you in the public place and I just not even look at your face.
Yeah.
So to fear God, to honor God, fear and honor are the same words in Hebrew. So to fear God or to honor God is to have a relationship with God.
Yeah, right.
It's to honor that he's the creator, that he wants to talk to you. It's like you're honoring a friend when he wants to talk to you and you respond back. The same thing with God. So that's the beauty of the book of Ecclesiastes. It's one of my favorite books. To my friends that are not believers, that are atheists, this is the number one book that I recommend them to read, actually. A lot of times.
And the way you've brought home the conclusion of the book is kind of a good way to conclude this whole breakfast show this morning, because we've focused a lot on reconciliation. It came through in our Bible study in Colossians. It came through in the story of Jacob and his sons and Joseph, and the reconciliation as they look forward to being together before Jacob dies, and God steps into that picture and also builds on that reconciliation theme, and with a message, Jacob. And we also, in our interview from Sophia's life experience, she's only 19, but she also shared about how her life has been about reconciliation. Yeah. The microfinance stories as well, reconciliation through our own livelihood and sustainable living. Yeah.
And the defamation thing
God
as well is about reconciliation. We're reconciling the idea that, hey, you know what? My reputation before men, that doesn't really matter too much. What really matters is my reputation or my conscience
before
with God.
Yeah.
So, you know what? There was a hidden theme in this studio that we didn't plan. It was the Holy Spirit that planned it all along. But there you go. It was all about reconciliation.
Yeah.
Thanks for putting that out there. That's pretty cool. Well, thank you, everyone. So today is Friday. It's preparation day. Tomorrow is the Sabbath of the Lord. Why not going to a church, finding a nice community to worship God together? We'll see you there. And on Monday, we will be back with more. So talk faith, live faith, and act faith.
God be with you till we meet again. God be with you till we meet again. By his counsel's guide uphold you, with his sheep securely fold you. God be with you till we meet again. Until we meet again at Jesus' feet.
Thanks for being a part of the Faith FM family. Join our community on Facebook or get in touch at 1-800-FAITH-FM.